Hello everyone, I am Wu Shibo from Yingwan Electroacoustic Co. Limited. Today I am here to introduce Yingwan's latest product, the DX20 Multi-Track Recording Digital Mixer. It is a comprehensive upgrade of the DM20 Digital Mixer, which was awarded the National Manufacturing Single Product Champion. First, let me introduce some of the functions of the front and the rear panels of this digital mixer. First, we can see 16 analog gain controls. The display section features a 7-inch touch screen. Over here, we have some system buttons, and these are the buttons for the built-in player. Looking from top to bottom, here is an output port for the monitor. This is a knob for the monitor, and there is also a USB port. Here you can insert a USB drive or a Wi-Fi dongle. Over here is the power on/off button. Here are two main output level meters. As you can see, the meters are already active because I have already sent a signal from the front, so you can observe their active status. This is a multifunctional knob, which we can use to adjust various parameters when we need to set them. Now let's look at the lower part of the console. The first thing we see here is its motorized faders. These are 100mm motorized faders, and there are a total of 9, including the main output fader. For each individual channel, here is a level meter, which indicates the channel signal level. Here is the channel selection button, channel mute, and channel gain. These 8 channels are all the same, and the main output also has these features. Next, looking at this function area, it consists of an input layer, an output layer, a bus layer, and a gain layer. Here are 2 independent buttons. These buttons allow you to copy and paste channels as needed. These 2 buttons enable you to quickly perform certain settings. Now, looking at this section, it has 2 groupings for fine-tuning. Please take a look. Over here is its quick check section. Next, I'll demonstrate some of the interface functions on the back for everyone. All right, the first area we see here is the analog signal input section. There are a total of 16 analog signal input ports, among which 4 are multifunction XLR input ports. This area here is the analog output interface with a total of 8 outputs. The interface we see here is a slot for an expansion card. Right now, we're using a USB expansion card here. After I plug in this USB cable, it enables communication with my computer's audio workstation. Here we can see an RC85 central control protocol interface, as well as SPDIF digital signal input and output. This is an AES EBU digital output interface, along with 2 balanced output interfaces. Here is a 5-star power plug, which is self-locking to prevent accidental disconnection after being plugged in. This is a USB 2 interface. All right, next, I'll introduce some of the mono-channel settings of this console. First, what you see here is the input page for channels 1 through 8. All 8 channels are the same, so I'll just use the first channel as an example for the introduction. First, let's open the first one, which belongs to the preamp section. The second section is the equalizer. The third section is the compressor, and the fourth section is the bus send section. The fifth section is for channel naming, and the sixth section is the fader section. All right, next I'll give a detailed introduction to the specific parameters and operations within each channel. First, after we double-click to open it, there's a 40 AV phantom power and phase switch. Here is a quick channel switch. You can see that I can quickly switch from channel 1 to all input channels. This section is for electronic gain, a delay, a high-pass filter, And there are also 8 effect inserts that can be directly inserted into this channel. All right, let's look at the EQ section. It has a 4-band EQ, and we can use our hand to drag and make some adjustments. These are for rough tuning. Now this is where the universal knob comes in. As you can see, the frequency changes as I turn it, and if I select the gain, that changes as well. And its KU value, well, both. Over here, there's a bypass function as well as an on-off switch. Over here is its library, where I can save some settings. That is, I can store my preset parameters in it. Now, let's look at the third section, which is the compressor part. There are also some parameters inside. Let me give you a brief introduction. You can also select different channels here. And here, as you can see, is a ducking function, also known as sidechain. I'll explain this to everyone in detail later on, how to use it. Here is its gate compressor, as well as some options for selecting and saving from the library. All right, next I'll introduce the bus outputs to you. Then we'll return to channel 1, where you can also select the channel. There are 8 bus outputs. By default, the main output is enabled, and we can manually tap to open it. Once you tap to open it, it's equivalent to sending the signal out. There's also a PRE fader here, which refers to pre-fader and post-fader. All right, let's turn it off for now. Now let's take a look at its channel settings. You can change its name. Both Chinese and English input methods are available. Let's enter something simple first. Okay, I failed a test. All right, select OK. It will change to test. Now, let's take a look at this. This section is the fader part, which includes the linking function channels 1 and 2 are now linked. It also has attenuation, mute, and the pan control. This is an adjustment for the fader. It has a quick reset to 0 double click in this box. We'll quickly reset it to 0. All right, let's turn it off for now. We've now finished introducing the single channel. All right, next I'll introduce the stereo and the DCA functions. First, we need to select the stereo and DCA layer buttons on the device. Let's select them now. On this page, 2 stereo channels and 6 DCA channels have appeared. Compared to single channels, stereo channels actually have many similar settings and usage methods. Many functions are the same. So I won't go into too much detail here. Let me first show you the differences. In its preamp input section, there is no delay or effects insert, and the EQ is the same as well, as is the bus send. The channel naming is also the same. However, in the output section, specifically the fader section, it lacks the link function. All other features are the same. So basically, this is almost identical to the single channel. I won't go into too much detail here. Next, I'll focus on explaining how to use the DCA. First, double-click to open this channel strip. Once it's open, you can select its input or bus as needed and assign it to DCA1 if you want it to be controlled by DCA1. If the second or third channel also needs to have certain inputs or outputs assigned, then the overall volume of these channels will be controlled by the DCA3 fader. All right. The other settings are all the same. The channel naming here is also the same as for stereo and mono channels. On this fader section, there is only a mute button and a fader for adjusting the level, as well as a quick reset to 0. Okay, that concludes my introduction to stereo and DCA channel. Next, I'll introduce the bus functions of this console. First, on the device, you'll see a bus button for the bus section. Let's select it first. After entering, this page is the channel page for the bus. Next, if we double-click the input of channel 1, we'll see bus 5, 6, 7, and 8-4 buses. This means that on bus 1, you can create a four-way matrix, sending signals to bus 5, bus 6, bus 7, and bus 8, and you can also send them to the main output. This is one of the highlights of this console. Then, on the right side, you have the insert section for the effects processor. This is its equalizer. The equalizer and the single channel stereo have the same settings and the usage methods. If you open up this relatively empty box, you'll see that the data settings are actually the same as those in the function area on the first layer. There's also channel naming. This is the fader section with an added delay. Everything else is the same as the single channel stereo. Alright, next I'll introduce some of the system settings of this digital mixing console, as well as give you an overview. First, let's select Setup to enter the system. After entering, the left side displays some of its system modules, while the right side provides detailed descriptions of these modules, including usage parameters and how to adjust them. Okay. Next, let's take a look at some of the parameters in the Setup section. The first section displays the console's serial number within the system, as well as version information for its APK software. All of this is found here. Below that, there is an IP address. What is this address for? Let me explain. This allows the console to be wirelessly controlled using tablets or computers. If we want to connect via a web browser, we just need to enter its IP address. As long as you turn on Wi-Fi and enter the IP address, you can achieve wireless connectivity. Here is its sampling rate. There are two options. One is 48K and the other is 44. 1K, we can select the sampling rate depending on whether we're playing back, recording, or doing other tasks. Below that is the unit for latency, which we can also choose. These are some settings within the system development section. The first is system update. Select this when updating the system. There is also an option to restore the device to factory settings, reset its library, reset any settings or parameters you configured, as well as import and export files, adjust the time, and record export or save a log file of these functions are found here. Alright. Now let's take a look here. This is the display brightness, which can be adjusted. You should be able to see the changes is the brightness adjustment for the display screen. Below that is a quick split screen point for creating a 2.1 split screen. I can go directly to bus 8, and after opening it, I can set its split screen point. You can also quickly insert it into the main output to set its split screen point. This can be adjusted using the universal knob. Alright, that concludes our introduction to the SetUP page. Next, I'll introduce its routing configuration. In the routing configuration, this side is for local routing, and this one is for external expansion routing. This console can connect to a network or to a USB expansion. Later on, you can choose to add expansion cards as needed. Now let's take a look at its local routing. This arrow pointing to the right represents the configuration of its buses. The buses can be assigned to the physical outputs on the back. There are a total of 8 physical outputs and 14 buses. So you can freely assign any of these 14 buses to the 8 physical outputs on the back. The arrow pointing to the left means that its 16 signal input sources can be freely assigned to its 16 physical output ports. The input sources can be assigned to its physical input ports. This is its reset button. If, after configuring, you feel that something was set incorrectly or is not ideal, you can press the reset button. The configuration for its external expansion and the local setup is actually exactly the same. All right, let's take a look at the key frequency table settings. First, the top row shows the meter status of the input signals, and below is the meter status of the outputs. Over here are the pre-fader and the post-fader for the inputs, and below are the pre-fader and the post-fader for the outputs. Next, I'll introduce how to use and insert effects processors. First, let's select an effects processor. Once inside, you'll see 8 modules organized into 4 groups with 2 modules in each group. Let's click on the first one. In its modulation section, there are some frequency band settings, as well as some ratio settings for compression, and also the dry-wet mix. All right, let's turn that off and look at the second one, which is delay. In the delay section, there are also some frequency band settings, as well as the dry-wet mix. This is the compression ratio. All right, next, I'll introduce a scenario for using the data on this mixer. First, let's select this function key. After entering, you'll see a blank scene. From the top, you can see that it allows you to save, modify names, delete, and create new scene. Receiver scene is included. Let's start by simply creating a scene. I'll make some basic adjustments with the fader. All right, let's create a new one first. Here you can see the date and project details of the new scene are all included. Now select Save. If I pull the fader down now and then want to use this scene, I just click on Load. You can see that it loads the scene I'm currently using, and everything here is included as well. All right, let's go back to the scene section. You can also change the name of the scene here. I can rename this scene to whatever I want, and after making changes, I just confirm it. For now, I won't make any changes and will exit. Next, let me introduce the player to you. This is a built-in player that comes with the system. It can also record audio as well as playback normally. Now, let me demonstrate for everyone. I'll find a USB drive that contains music files. It supports playback of all formats, including MP3 and WAV. All right, there are 3 songs here. I'll double-click to open one, and it's now playing. You can see 2 level meters here, both showing that song is being played. So, what is this knob for? Let me explain. You can use the universal knob to adjust the recording volume when recording. The recording button is here. The console itself can record, and it records 2 tracks of audio. If you don't connect it to external multi-track recording software, the console can record 2 tracks of music on its own. All right, oh, the recording has stopped. Hey, this is the file we just recorded. It's right here. Okay, that's the introduction for now. All right, I just saw that many teachers in the live stream are asking questions, so I'd like to briefly answer 2 of them. The first is that there are several effects built in. All right, let's take a look. our device has a dedicated button for the effects processor. When we press it, there are 4 groups inside. And actually, there are 8 effects processors in total. The first is modulation, the second is delay, the third is reverb, and the fourth is EQ. As you can see, there are 8 effects processors in total. Then the second question is, besides the USB audio interface, are there any other types of audio interfaces supported? At present, we are already developing an audio interface with a network transmission protocol. And in the future, we will develop more types of audio interfaces. All right, next let's introduce the monitor section of this console. First, when we select the monitor function area and enter it, we can see that on the detail page, the left half is a built-in signal generator, and the right half contains headphone and monitoring settings. First of all, it has some white noise, pink noise, and some options. We can choose one and then turn on its switch. I will turn off a few first and turn off all of them. The gray area indicates that the signal hasn't been sent out. If I select it and it changes to this color, it means the OES signal has already been sent out, sent to bus 1. Now, if we send it to bus 2, we can see it has a level meter because we are currently on the bus layer. All right, we can adjust its gain level, and you can clearly see the status on the level meter. I can also adjust its signal frequency. Yes, it changes as well. All right, we've finished introducing the OSC section here. Over here is the headphone output setting. When you plug in your headphones, you might find the sound is very quiet. And that's because over here, it's set to 10 by default. So after plugging in your headphones, when you're using it, you need to go into the monitor, the system monitor, and adjust the volume according to your needs. This is the headphone mute, which is located here. This is the solo button, which is what we refer to as monitoring. You can choose to monitor either before or after with PFL and EFL options. We can select the monitoring mode here and also adjust its volume. Next, I will introduce the word clock function of this digital mixer. First, we select the word clock function module in the system. After entering, the first thing you'll see is a set of shortcut keys. There are 4 of them. On the right side of the screen, there are 4 buttons labeled A, B, C, and D. You can see these 4 shortcut keys on the display. Let's select the first one, which allows us to assign the effects processor to shortcut key A. Assign monitor to shortcut key B. We'll demonstrate with these 2. As you can see, key A is for the effects processor and the key B is for its settings. All right, next I'll introduce the mute groups or mute function. With this option, you can assign channels 1, 2, 3, and 4, including their bus outputs, to the all mute group. Now, let's check if the option is set to all mute group 1. All right, as we can see, this is the all mute group I created. Now, let's go back and look at its all mute layer. There are 2 options. We can assign input channel 1, input channel 3, DCA2, or any channels you like to the all mute layer. However, you can only select up to 8 because the display can only show 8 channels. So let's pick 8. All right, let's take a look. Okay, it's loading now. Let's check its all mute layer. All right, the first layer is channel 3. This channel is channel 3. The second channel is DCA2, which is the all mute layer I just created. Okay, that's the end of the introduction to the all mute function on this console. Next, I'll introduce some useful techniques for operating within the input channels. As you can see on this console, there's a button here labeled SNDS. Let me explain what this button is used for. This is a very practical and convenient shortcut button. If I select a particular input channel, now for example, let's say I select channel 5 and then press the SNDS button, all the faders will no longer represent the input channel's volume levels, but instead they will show the levels for the bus channels. For example, if I now turn on mute, the mute button now controls the switch for the bus. Right now I've selected bus 5 and it shows bus 5 here. If I turn it off, it's gone. If I turn mute on now, it's equivalent to turning on bus 5. Once it's on, we can move its fader. And this fader controls the volume level of bus 5. Now, if I want to quickly reset everything to 0, as you can see, fader 2, fader 4, fader 5, and 6 can all be quickly turned on for all the buses using this shortcut method. Now, if I turn them off, after turning them off, this fader here controls the input channel's volume level and serves that function. Next, there's also a copy and paste function here. Let me demonstrate it for everyone. If I want to copy the data from channel 5 to another channel, I select channel Fivino. Channel 5 is selected, press copy. And if I want to copy it to channel 7, I press paste. This will copy all the data from channel 5 into channel 7. All right, next I'll demonstrate its